All my parts are here to put this together, so that's what I'm going to do real quick, and it's a pretty straightforward procedure. Tapping them in and putting the bolts in. I'll make sure I take a thread tap and clean out the SPL drive shaft so that the bolts will go down in good. And once I get these assembled, we're going to start putting them back in the truck because we need to set up our drive line. The drive shaft, I have to set it up at the right angle and the right pitch, and there's a calculation involved. I can't do that until we set the ride height. We got to set the ride height on the air ride because this is not a traditional setup, and since we've kind of built this kind of sort of hodgepodged it together. Speaking of hodgepodge, go check out a friend of ours, Hodgepodge Dodge Garage. I'll try and leave a link in the description box for his channel. Really great young man, does some nice stuff. He's doing some builds on some medium and lighter duty trucks, and he's very resourceful. Let's put it that way. He's in very, very clean channel, which I really like. So I'll put a description in there, you check him out. So anyway, since we've kind of manipulated and retrofit this to fit our truck, we have to set the ride height, which is why this has not been cut yet, because I have to get the ride height, and there's a specific measurement between here, between the top of the axle and the bump stop, the top of the axle pad here where the bump stop rides, and the axle itself. So we have to set that before we can go any farther. Sorry, I had a thought, squirrel. So we got to get the ride height set, because when you change the ride height as you come up and down, it changes the pinion angle on the front of the differential. All right, I needed a way to drive this on, so just grabbed a piece of drive shaft, cut it up, and welded this top on it. I wanted a way to do this easily without having to distort anything, and I wanted it to get in there and seat well, so it just took a few minutes. This is an old cutout from that one flatbed I cut down and put taillights in the rear. It's a piece of truck frame, of course, so let me tap that in. Perfect all the way around. All right, so the next part of this ordeal is to phase this U-joint correctly. So if you look at all your U-joints on your truck, you can see how that one down there is flat, right? See how the yoke is flat right there? Well, that's what we need here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a level on there, a driveline level, and let it sit exactly level and give me a reading, and then do the same thing on this end. All right, we're at 0 there. There we go, 0. All right, so before I go and run this yoke up on, I'm going to measure in here from, I took a measurement originally from the machine surface here into this collar, this step. All right, so I took that measurement. Now we'll take and subtract the thickness of the bearing, and then we'll measure it again so we make sure that the bearing is seated, because we're not able to see that in there. I believe it's seated, but at the same time, we're going to make sure before we go ahead and run that down in. So after I'm happy that I've got this set right with the other one, then I just go ahead and drive my yoke on. I don't want to set the yoke on and use the nut to pull it on, because there's not a lot of thread here, and there's not a lot of thread there, and if you screw up the stub shaft here, you'll have to have it replaced. So what I do is I put it on there, and then I drive it on with something like this, and then I'll tap it on until it gets in all the way. Before I do that, I make sure that, you know, my splines are all clean on the inside of the hub, or inside the yoke and the stub shaft. Once I'm happy with that, I'll drive it in. I don't put any lubricant on here whatsoever because I'm going to be, putting a torque to it here. So some guys like to put Never Seas in here. I don't do anything. I put it on dry. If from the factory it was dry, I don't know if it matters. That's the way I put it on. And then I'm going to use Loctite 271 red Loctite. I'm going to put it on the threads. You can see it's a locking nut. It's swedged here, here, and here, and that's basically what they do is they take that thing and they push down right here, push down on the 3 spots, and it basically deforms the thread slightly so they lock as they come on. And then I'm going to run it in and torque it to spec. Always torque it to spec. There's specifications for a reason. Make sure you use them. Take a minute to talk about, your proper tools. It's always important to have your torque wrench recalibrated, because you always want to be able to rest assured that, it's proper. So always have it tested. Oh, yeah, that's good. Okay, let's move on. Got my U-joint in here, and I've got the first cap on. So I take my fingers and hold the U-joint up as I tap the cap in, and I use a brass hammer to do it because I don't want to mar up the edge of this. After you got your bolts in here, torque to spec of course, you check it and make sure you don't have any rough spots. It should be smooth both ways. Scratch my paint up a little bit here. Should be smooth both ways like this. If it's not, then what you'd want to do is, if you have spots where you feel like it's going click, 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 then you've dropped a roller and need to take it back apart. But if you dropped a roller, you wouldn't be able to get to this point where you got your locks in. The other thing is, when you put your locks in, your locking plates, you want to make sure that they're sitting flat down on here, on your metal here. If they're not sitting flat here, then something's not in right. But I'm satisfied we're good, and that's one done. So now I'll move on to this one. Alright, so I put the hanger back on, and it's important you pay attention. The rubber has to come down and kind of click into this spot right here. When it does, then the rubber sits almost level. It will compress just a little bit as you put it in the truck, as you install it. But you got to make sure you got them little clicks. I'm going to raise spots in there. See if I got another one I can show you here. Yeah, it's a raised spot like that. It's got to click into place. That way you know you're in. Alright, we're going to set this one aside. Alright, so we're all done. We've got all the carrier bearings in, all the yokes are on, U-joints are in, grease fittings are in. We are ready to install them. Alright, so my drive shaft's in. There's the front. This is the factory cross member here with a factory hanger. And we had to locate where the second drive shaft carrier bearing was going to be located. I got that in and got it located. We drilled the holes and we figured out how far down we needed to set that carrier bearing. And we got the rear drive shaft in on the rear axle. Everything's in, it's all greased, it's all complete. So that's the end of the drive shaft section of this. I recorded setting up the ride height valve and the dump valve and all that. I don't know if anyone wants to see it. If they do, leave it in the comments. I'll post that video. If not, we'll just let it go. Now we're moving on to the back end, which I've already started. So hope you enjoyed that. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, leave your comments down below, guys. We'll catch you on the next one.